I want to talk a little bit about the Rance article because I think that one of the things that that article brings up is whether these technologies are really meeting their potential in terms of real life applications. So there's some really interesting things that they were doing, and I like the term that they use, technology-enabled vital signs. So using technology to provide us with information that may allow us to detect these earlier healthcare changes. And in fact, they claim that in their article, they were able to actually see subtle changes in a person's health 10 to 12 days before a health event occurred. And so some of the health events were things like urinary tract infections, respiratory disorders, I think cardiac issues. So first of all, what were some examples of the technologies that they were using? Yes, okay, so you capture a lot of the different sensors that they were using to look at walking speed. So I think they also talked about using Doppler earlier, but now really changing over to everything was Connect. And you mentioned some of the changes that maybe might not be picked up by the Connect in terms of like your slower versus your faster type of walking. And what are some other big issues with using like a Connect? Okay, so very good. So the bathroom is one of the biggest places that people fall. The Connect, the biggest issue with it is that one, you'd have to have a lot of connects around, right, to be able to cover all the areas in the house. And two, if there's some sort of something in the way of your view, then that's also going to cause some difficulty. So there definitely are some challenges, but it's an interesting technology that doesn't ask people to wear something, right? And we'll talk about some of our wearables too with falls because they have issues too. Okay, other things that they were using to get these vital signs. Okay, so they were able to get some physiological measures by some sensors that they were putting under the bed that would tell them information about a person's health. That's great. Okay. So what sort of vital signs were being monitored then? Like what sort of things were they trying to monitor, or did they find themselves being successful at monitoring? So falls was one of the big things that they were trying to capture, and falls is something that I can't tell you how many times Diana and I probably have presented information about the smart home, and what's the first question we get? Can you measure falls? So that's one of the things that many healthcare professionals are concerned about, and with good reason, right? Because it has significant implications for a person's ability to maintain their independence. I thought that they came up with some interesting ways of trying to come up with algorithms that would pick up falls using the Connect and using the other sensors that they were using. So can anyone tell me what their methodology was? Kind of get some research methodology in here. What did they do? Okay, so that is one thing that a lot of people have done, use actors to simulate falls. And in fact, I think in Toronto, they actually have like a fall floor where they can make it shake and kind of imitate, helping people fall. But what did they find out were some of the issues with using actors for falling and for creating those algorithms? Okay, so while the idea of actors is actually a really interesting way of training algorithms, and in fact, we train them in the smart home by having people do the activities normally, when a person, actually does fall, and older adults fall, may be very different than what the actors is. So they may be trying to grab onto things in the environment as they fall. They may fall much slower than, someone who's imitating a fall. So they found that was one of the issues with actually using these actors. But how else are you going to get this data, right? Could wait for I don't know, 10 years until you have how many different instances of falls, but even those instances of falls may be so different. So again, there's challenges to creating these health algorithms and being creative and trying to figure out ways that you're actually going to be able to create these algorithms. So we talked about falls as being something that is a significant risk factor for decreasing functional independence in older adults. So it's actually the leading cause of both morbidity and mortality in individuals over age 65. Fall and lack of balance is a major contributing factor to 40% of nursing home admissions. Fractures are the most serious consequence. And then, these are all the reasons that older adults are at more risk for falls. So those musculoskeletal changes that we talked about today. Diseases, so if we have time, we'll talk a little bit about Parkinson's disease, but there are other age-related diseases that can affect balance and gait. We already talked about all the sensory impairments, right? If we have more difficulty adjusting to glare, seeing in the dark, those things are going to put us at risk for falls. Cognitive changes that we'll start talking about on Thursday, and then medication. So if your medication is not adjusted right, if it makes you dizzy, or you have more difficulty getting up, those sort of things can put you at risk. Now, one of the things that can happen when an older adult has a fall, it can actually start kind of a vicious cycle. Because if you fall, one of the things that often happens is falling is already feared, but now you've fallen, right? So now you're probably going to be even more fearful about falling. And I actually saw this in my father soon after he had a fall. And we talked about this, that you have to, just keep going because it's very important. But if you don't, then you end up avoiding activity, right? And if you avoid activity, what does that do? Makes your muscles weaker, right? And then that's going to have more negative effects on your gait and your balance and increase your risk for falling. So it's very important that when people fall, we are able to intervene and not get into this vicious cycle where they have fear of falling and they stop and avoid things. So again, perhaps these other ways of monitoring individuals so that maybe we can pick up risk factors even before they fall, so that there's been some sort of slight change in their health. Can we predict that they're at increased risk for falling? Can we intervene earlier? Maybe it's it's something more like an infection or a COPD, but maybe it's something where they just haven't been exercising as much, and that's starting to have wear and tear on their body. That maybe we could put some sort of proactive intervention into place for that individual. Okay, so in terms of fall detection technologies, we do have those active systems. People wear those life alert buttons where they can, press the button if something happens. What are some of the issues with those sorts of things? Yeah. Okay, so older adults may choose not to push them, either because they're making that decision or maybe they're cognitively confused about that. Okay, they may not be able to access it if it's on them, or if it's on the wall somewhere, maybe they fall where it's not in range. So if they lose consciousness or they can't move, then even if they want to access it, again, they're not going to be able to. Okay, that's okay, right. Because there's expenses with these sort of systems, right? There has to be someone on the other end of the line who can then answer the call and assess the situation or make a decision about what's going to happen. Okay, so those are the active systems. Now we also have passive systems that people have been developing where they can use things like motion, pressure, accelerometers, motion location, speed of motion, so kind of develop these algorithms and have the person wear something on their body, and then if they sense a change that's predictive of a fall, they can automatically notify the center that a fall might have occurred. Okay, so anyone know anything about those passive systems or see, look what we saw in terms of the rants article. Any thoughts about how these passive systems might work? How accurate do you think they might be? So one of the issues that has to be worked out with falls is that there's not a high rate of false alarms, right? Because if there's a high rate of false alarms, then what's going to happen? People are probably going to stop using them, right? If they're always getting called and being asked, have you fallen now? Or if the fall actually sends out, like someone to check on the person, then, if that happens too much, that's going to be very costly, right? So developing those algorithms that are going to be accurate in terms of detecting a fall when it actually occurs and not a fall when it's not a fall, right? When a person is just sitting on the ground, playing a game with a grandchild or something. So you're talking about that need to really make sure that you're training the algorithm with the population that you're interested in. And that is really important. I mean, that's even important in our cognitive testing, right? Like we have to have norms that are based on the population of interest. Because you're right, if you use a population that doesn't represent the type of falling that you would see with an older adult, then your algorithms are probably not going to work well. So then that's an interesting question too, in terms of these algorithms. Have they been developed just specifically for older adults, or are they more wide, are they used widely by different populations, or do you program it with different algorithms depending on, whether you're 50 or you're 70? That would be an interesting question. And again, what you want to be doing is distinguishing those falls from other activities that the individual may be engaged in. There's an example on YouTube. I think it's the My Halo. If you just want to look at that at some time, you can go ahead and listen to that. Here are some interventions that can prevent falls. So the biggest thing being exercise that we talked about, the importance of that, managing medications, doing environmental modifications, so making sure there's plenty of light, there's no rugs, no tripping hazards, and then education and training are very important. And I also gave you some fall prevention safety information if you're interested, but what I wanted to do is show you with the time that we have left that mobility assistive technology video that we have. Okay, now let's see if I can get it louder.
Good physical function and mobility adds to psychosocial well-being and overall quality of life. The ability to get around can become more difficult with age, but there are a number of
Can everyone hear okay?
to help support independent living. In this video, we discuss aids that assist with mobility, including tools to help with transitions from sitting to standing, walking aids, and ramps and lifts.
Pay attention to see whether you've seen any of these in your service learning placements.
A car handle device provides support for getting in and out of a car. Simply hook it onto the pre-existing metal ring inside a car door. Another device, the car strap handle, can attach to the frame of most car doors or to an existing door handle inside the car. The adjustable strap offers balancing support when getting in and out of a car. A swivel car seat is able to turn, relieving pressure on joints and making getting in and out of a car easier. Seat lift cushions and chairs are helpful when moving from a sitting to standing position. Self-powered or electric cushions slowly rise up to provide support when getting out of a chair. So that muscle tone is maintained, please consult with a physical therapist or healthcare provider about how to use a seat lift cushion. A couch support bar provides aid when getting down or up from a couch or living room chair. provide support wherever they are installed. Bed railings provide help when getting in and out of bed. Transfer poles aid in sitting and standing and can be placed by a sofa or in the bathroom. Portable bed railings and grab bars are also available and can be used when traveling. Make sure these devices are properly installed so they can be weight bearing.
They have these grab bars.
That is my dad.
With suction cups on each end of them, and they're quite strong. If a person, a senior who travels a lot, will find them very helpful in the shower or in the tub, because they will give you a lot of support.
Transfer chairs and sliding transfer benches can make transfer in and out of a bathtub safer. Walking aids. Canes and walking sticks provide support when walking. Some come with flashlights to increase visibility. You can also attach a flashlight to your existing walking device. Walkers and wheeled walkers, known as rollators, are lightweight walking aids with 4 legs or wheels. Some have baskets to store items and help with tasks such as shopping. Padded seats and backrests also make taking a rest from walking easier. Portable folding wheelchairs are easy to use, convenient, and lightweight. They can be folded and stored in the car, making outings easier. Speak with your healthcare provider about options for more permanent, long-term manual and electric wheelchairs, and for a car wheelchair lift. Ramps and lifts. Ramps designed to go over stairs and ledges make for smooth transitions and reduce the risk of tripping. Portable, lightweight ramps can create a handy pathway over any surface. Pool lifts move a person from poolside into the water. Lifts for personal bathtubs are also available. Track lifts can be installed in the home, making transfer to a wheelchair safe.